Hi there, welcome here with my 158th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you my October and November wrap-up and what I'm planning on reading in December. That's a nice snappy title there. 2-month catch-up, how about that? Yeah, I'm not reading nearly as much as I'd hoped to have been, so I'm not going to just wave the same book at the camera every single month, saying I'm going to read it this month and not. I think if I have a bigger month I'll do a single month on its own, but otherwise, 6 books a month. It's not bad, but I just don't have the time to do a video each month for that. Anyway, let's get cracking. So numbers, as I said, I read 6 books in October, mounting to 1,555 pages, also known as 5,382 pages behind where I was at the same time last year. So, doing really well. So start off finishing Adam by Ted Dekker. This is a faith crime book where our detective is trying to track down a serial killer, and indeed the story pretty much plays out just like a usual crime detective novel of a detective trying to track down a serial killer. It's interspersed with magazine articles about the serial killer set after his capture, about his young life and the path that he took to get to where he was to become the serial killer. You learn more about the serial killer as you go through these articles. And of course what makes this one stand apart from other crime stories where they try to track down the serial killer is quite early on the main detective is killed. Bit of a downer on the detective part there, but don't worry, he is revived and he's able to resume his investigation. But something happened while he was dead to him. Not quite the same as in an X-Files adventure, but let's just say the spiritual world is more involved in this than normal crime stories, but not overly so. You're not beaten over the head about it. And although he did get a bit stupid at times doing various why you're doing that type things, I did enjoy it. Buy it. Next up is The Power of the Dark Crystal Part 1, which is a sequel to the original Dark Crystal film, set many years after the film, where the main protagonists of the film are now really old, and we've got a new threat. Basically, a fire-type gelfling comes from the centre of the planet to come and help themselves to a bit of the crystal to save their dying world in the centre of the planet. And of course, in doing so, they release the Skeksis again. I'd love to tell you more, but we've only got book 1, and it really did leave on a cliffhanger where the Skeksis are now out, and okay, that was it. Now, normally I don't have a problem with books being left on a cliffhanger, and certainly graphic novels are sort of supposed to be collected up to be a whole series of a story, but I would say a single graphic novel should have enough story in it in itself to warrant its own individual existence. The artwork's pretty nice, a bit stylised, but everything is very clear. It's worth reading. Not quite a whole story in its own, though. And after that, I then read October's Book of the Month, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I have done an individual video on this one. I'll leave a link in the description box below if you want to go and find out what I thought of that. And then after this, I then read Star Wars Knight Errant Book 3 Escape. I was very excited to have found this in the Forbidden Planet in London. Got books 1 and 2. I had 2 for ages, but didn't read it because I didn't have book 1. Then I got book 1, found that was completely rubbish. Read book 2, which was really good. And so, having a rubbish book, a really good book, what was this like? Honestly, I don't know. It was a bit all over the place and felt like certain chapters or pages were missing. It seemed to jump around a lot. There is a coherence to it, I suppose, but very jumpy. Basically, the main Jedi, Kara Hulk, goes undercover in the Sith army to do something. I'm not quite sure what, but in the means of trying to do something, she finds out that her parents might be located at this certain place, and then drops everything to go and see if she can find her parents, and then uncovers something else, and it was alright. Artwork's nice and clear. You can clearly see who's who, and it's a lot less nostril obsessed than the first book. Not that would be difficult. And after that, I then read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I read this to my wife. Now, the film came out 10 years ago or so. Didn't see it. It's one of those books that keep popping up in the 100 books you must read before you die and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, my dad had a copy, so we've borrowed it off him and we gave it a go. Basically, it's in the far distant future and Earth is at war with some insectoid race and getting their asses whooped. Or we had been at war, but there's another war due. And it doesn't look good. They seem to have eidetic memories and a collective brain, so everything you try, you can only try once, sort of thing. And so they've been breeding a breed of super intelligent children to lead their squadrons. And one such one is this chap called Ender, who he starts off at school and gets bullied, and then he leaves school and goes to a military school and gets bullied, and then he gets up a bit and he gets bullied. And I did mention he gets bullied a bit in this. And he's the underdog, but he always gets the one-upmanship over everybody. But then they try and make him into this great military leader by basically making him play war games the whole time and leading his squad and all the rest of it. And It was alright. Had I not read a whole bunch of science fiction stories, good and bad, before, I might have thought, oh, this is one of those 100 books you must read before you die type science fiction books, because this is the only science fiction books I've read. But, you know, I've read tons of other much better science fiction stories than this one. Plenty that deal with the hopelessness of the military and the pointlessness of war and the things that the leadership will do to their citizens to win despite any cost. So, you know, I didn't miss the narrative to that. Harryhausen's done it better, Robert Heinlein's done it better. You know, I mean, if it's choice of this and Starship Troopers, for example, I'd say Starship Troopers any day. The book, not the film. The film's fun, but it's garbage. It took a little time to get into it. I mean, the character wasn't very likeable, and he wasn't supposed to be likeable. But the main issue I really had with this was the American language. The American name for the alien species is bugger. So it's bugger this and bugger that, and look at those buggers. Yeah, not the greatest thing to have every other line in a novel, really. There you go. Worth reading. But if you're unsure about this one, pick Starship Troopers instead. Much better, in my opinion. And then finally, I read the first story in this, The Witcher Omnibus, House of Glass. Now, this weighty volume contains 4 collected graphic novels, so I can count it 4 times for each story. First story being House of Glass. I shall say I've seen the first series and we've started the second series of The Witcher on TV, on Netflix, and I've not played the games, I've not read any of the books, so no, I'm not hugely into the Witcher world or knowing what it's all about. And these stories are standalone tales set in the Witcher universe. I think they're sort of tied into the Witcher computer games. You know, trying to see at least in the show, so you know who Geralt is and who Yennefer is and Ciri. Yeah, some of the main characters, because they sort of come and go. You know, there's no introduction to this is this person, this is how they fit into everything. No, it's just like, oh, hi Ciri, you're going to join us again, sort of thing. And oh, look, here's Yennefer, she's just coming through. Bye Yennefer, off she goes again. Who's that? No. So if you don't know the games, or if you don't know the story, then you might be a little bit lost. Anyway, so House of Glass, Geralt comes across a man in the middle of some dark, deep woods somewhere, and the man's being haunted by a spectre of a woman who happens to be his dead wife. Oh, the two team up and go on their merry way until they come across this mysterious house where a whole bunch of weird stuff goes on in there, and it's clearly a haunted house. But everything keeps coming back to this dead wife. But it works pretty good. It's quite sort of grim and gritty. And being a Witcher story, there is a little bit of nudity in here, swearing, bad language, maybe even some rock and roll. No, wait, that hadn't been invented yet. But I found it a really good story. I really found it compelling and a nice sort of ghost story with a good twist at the end, which I kind of saw coming, but I didn't care. Yeah, buy it. So there you go. That was October. On to November. Numbers game. So November, again, 6 books. Did a little bit better with 1,868 pages, meaning I've closed the gap a little bit to only 4,341 pages behind end of November last year. Yay. So that only leaves me with about 31 books to try and read in December to catch up. So first up, I finished reading Star Wars Scoundrels by Timothy Zahn. This story slots in between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. So the first Death Star has just been blown up. Han's taken his reward and gone his merry way, with the full intent of paying off Jabba the Hutt, and the Rebel alliances will be moving to Hoth. But except for all that, Han Solo is in a bit of a bind. He's managed to lose all his reward money and is desperately trying to find a get-rich-quick scheme to get some back. And he happens to bump into some random guy who says, can I hire you to do a heist for me? So in a way, this is effectively Ocean's 11, the Star Wars version. It's a heist book. So Han Solo collects up a bunch of ne'er-do-wells and other pickpocket-type characters to do this heist. There's an awful lot of build-up of getting the people together and checking out the place. You also bounce to the people that they're checking out. It's Black Sun related, and so there's big criminal organisations that are going to be nicking it off. The Empire's got secret agents involved in it too, somewhere along the line, but from a different angle. They don't know the heist is going on. Our guys don't know the Imperials are there. And so there's lots of different layers going on with various people getting involved. And of course, those familiar with The Empire Strikes Back, when Han and Lando meet on the Cloud City landing platform, Lando's all, you got a lot of guts coming after what you pulled, sort of thing. Sort of, I'm not very happy with you. And we find out why he's not very happy because of this book. Which is quite funny, because before this was written, there was a previous book in the series where, again, Han does kind of piss Lando off quite substantially. But no, all is forgiven and forgotten for that one. It's a new one in here that Han unintentionally does to Lando, which is why he's not so pleased to see him in The Empire Strikes Back. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. I love the characters. I thought there's some really good new characters they put in here. Han felt like Han, Lando felt like Lando, and they didn't feel super first for being there. I mean, some of these stories, they all just, because they're well-known face, let's shove them in, and they're doing stuff. Black Fleet Crisis comes to mind. But no, everyone felt like they deserved their place there. Everyone had a reason for being there. You know, could you trust all these characters? Because you had an awful lot there, and a lot of them unknown for double-crossing and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of levels working here. No, but like I say, Ocean's 11 in Star Wars, which pretty much sums it up really, and really enjoyed it. Worth buying. And after that, I then read 20 Trillion Leagues Under the Sea by Adam Roberts. I have done a video for this one, being November's book of the month, so I'll leave a link in the description box below for that, if you want to know what I thought of this one. And then after that, I then read, I should say, finished reading, finally after about a year, the mammoth book of Best New SF18. And the 722 pages of this tome attests to why I was able to catch up a little bit on my page number. However, it's a bit of a cheat because half of this I had read previously earlier on in the year, my first attempt to get through it. But finally finished. Basically, this is a collection of short stories by all sorts of authors who write science fiction. Some were good, some were great, some were a bit indifferent. There's a story called Leviathan Wept by Daniel Abraham from The Expanse. It wasn't an Expanse book, which is a bit bizarre due to the title Leviathan Wept, but it was quite a nice reading story by them. I didn't much enjoy it, but it was there. Mayflower 2 by Stephen Baxter was a human colony ship story, which was quite interesting, having already read this year Ark by Stephen Baxter, which was a human colony ship story, and there were a lot of similarities between the two. Clearly he'd written Mayflower 2 first, but there were certain things that happened in both which just stood out to me. The highlight story for me was The Tribes of Bella by Albert E. Cowdery, which consists of a series of journal entries telling the tale of what happened at the disastrous colony on the planet Bella. That was really exciting, really tense. Based on a sea story, Guy goes there to investigate some murders, and there's far more going on than he first thinks, and before they know it, they're overrun by the native people who were supposed to have not been there in the first place. Really, really good story. Really enjoyed that one. Not a bad collection. Not a great collection. I won't keep this book. There's not enough in here worth rereading, I don't think. Oh, Investments was really good, wasn't it? Oh, and the final story by Walter John Williams, Investments. Really enjoyed that. Had a sort of Anne McCaffrey Planet Pirates feel to it. A lot of depth to it, and I looked it up, and yes, it did belong to a series, book 0.5 or 1.5, 2.5, I can't remember, but it fitted between two stories of the main series, and so may well be looking Walter John Williams up next time in a bookshop just to see if I can find the first book of that series, because I really enjoyed that and would like to see more from that world. Worth reading. You know, maybe just read a story every now and again, perhaps. Glad it's done. And then next up, the second story, actually the last three stories in here, I read all three, not in one sitting, but the three stories then read. So Fox Children was next. Joel and friend, who I don't know who they are, get hired by a shipload of people to protect them from evil creatures hunting them down. Turns out there's a really good reason why this evil creature's hunting them down. They've only taken her child and killed it, because by then it's too late for Geralt, because he's already thrown his lot in with them and defended them against this being. And so that's a really interesting tale as they sort of try and escape this thing that's able to create mirages and all the rest of it. And in the course of the story, you know, one by one, the crew of this boatload of idiots get taken out by various creatures, or their own stupidity, or both. Really good, buy it. Following that, it was then the very short story Killing Monsters, where Geralt and fellow Witcher Vesemir get hired to take out a monster killing a bunch of people around a village. There is one, but that's not what's been killing all of the people. There's a much more flesh and blood monster living right in the village who's responsible for many of the deaths themselves. So that was a good, interesting tale where people who are hired to kill monsters only, you know, they're not supposed to kill men, are having to decide whether or not they should be able to kill this man, because effectively he is a monster. It was quite good. I'd say worth reading. And as I said, you know, each story generally has a little bit of nudity and swearing in it, which I don't mind, but I did find the fact that we had this dream sequence where Geralt just has sex with Yennefer, who randomly turns up in his dreams. Why? That was just put there gratuitously, as far as I can tell. And then finished off with Curse of Crows, where Yennefer, Geralt and Ciri, who is also a Witcher, try to track down a particular monster. They encounter a boy who can change into a crow and back, and our heroes quickly find out they're not at all as what it seems, like in all the other stories really. Two things that really stood out with this one though is, first off, the preliminaries are pretty much like a day in the life of a Witcher as they go to various places, killing various monsters just on the side, dealing with their things. You know, they pick up a beautiful lady in the middle of the woods, who turns out to be something, and the story took a little while to actually get going. And the other one is they do like to spend an awful lot of time in the baths. I'm not sure if it was just because they wanted to increase the amount of boobs they had in each panel, because why have a conversation on the back of a horse or lying in bed or sitting at a table when you can be having a nice bath while you're doing it. Awful lot of bathing going on in here. Now, obviously, killing monsters is a very messy business. You get covered in all sorts of unpleasant stuff. So bathing must be a natural conclusion to that, but, you know, they eat a fair bit here too, and we don't see them going to the toilet every 5 minutes, which I'm very grateful for, I must say, but I think it really was a case of, we need more boobs, what can we do? I don't know, baths, lots of baths. Let's go to a new place and have another bath. Oh look, you've welcome weary traveller, you must be tired, have a bath. I've got a picture for you. No baths in this one, surprisingly enough. It took a while to find a page that didn't have baths on it, but yeah, artwork's pretty good. You can clearly see who's who. The story was alright, but overly long, I thought, and no, I don't have a problem with the bath. I just thought, I just found myself thinking, why are we having another bath? Obviously, I don't bath enough. Worth reading. And as a collective, which is bloody heavy to hold up, yeah, a really good, solid thing, insight into the world of The Witcher. As I would recommend knowing a little bit about Witcher before you read it, but you don't necessarily need to know much about it more than just who the main characters are and what they do. That's what I've read. What am I going to be reading in December? So, my book of the month will be The Everlasting by Tim Lebbon. I've become quite a fan of Tim Lebbon. No idea what this one is about. Looks like a haunted house type story. Looking forward to it. But I won't read that until I finish reading Star Wars Spectre of the Past by Timothy Zahn, a book one of the Hand of Thorn duology. I tried to finish this last month. I've taken too long to read it. I'm really enjoying it, but I want to finish that first. Then I'll read the Tim Lebbon. That's the book 2 of the Hand of Thorn duology, which is just shy of 700 pages. So it's the 7th today. I'm not sure how I'm going to get on getting through it in the month. But if I do, I've also got vintage stuff by Tom Sharp. This will be a reread, really funny. Teacher goes on a road trip with a student. Nothing creepy like that, but there's a legitimate reason why they do it. I can't remember, it's been so long since I read it. But I remember it being really funny, so going for that. And Doctor Who Hunter's Moon by Paul Finch, which looks to be a surviving the game type story where our heroes are kidnapped, set loose on a planet and hunted. So having another Witcher, the graphic novels I'm playing and reading this month are the Serenity ones, Those Left Behind, which is Volume 1, and The Shepherd's Tale Volume 3. Apparently we do have them in comic form as well, but I wasn't going to faff with comics at the moment. I've already read this one out of order, but it's a standalone, so it really make a difference. But currently working on that one. And we've just gone through the whole Firefly series again, and the film, showed it to my to my youngest who loved it all. So, yeah, having been reading the books as well, want to read them. And I'll probably keep in the Whedonverse and move on to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which we've also just started to watch. Book 1, I think, is Origin, which is the graphic novel of the film, which I've not seen. So that'd be nice. I also read to other people in the household. To my youngest, I'm still reading The Clash of the Sky Galleons by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddle. That's book 3 of the Quint sequence from the Edge Chronicles, and the 9th book in the series, or the 3rd book in the series chronologically. Over halfway, hoping to finish it soon. And having finished reading Ender's Game to my wife, we then moved on to Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a reread for me, but I enjoyed rereading that to her. We finished it night before last, so it's going to go on to my December wrap up, but that was that. And having done that now, we started The Revenger by Alistair Reynolds last night. Again, this is a reread for me. This is a book 1 of the Revenger trilogy set in the impossibly distant future, and it's a sort of a steampunk space pirate adventure following two sisters. Absolutely love this trilogy first time I read it. Really enjoying it again already. It's a sort of a wacky blend between swashbuckling space pirates and steampunk and adventure. For those who love most of Alistair Reynolds' stuff, they hate it because it's so different to his Revelation Space series, sort of a hard sci-fi story, whereas this is I'd say if you're less inclined to read science fiction, this is more friendly to those who don't like science fiction or a bit uncomfortable with science fiction. I would say getting into it can be a little bit tricky because there's some weird terminology here, which isn't even science fiction terminology. It's, because we're so far ahead in the future, they call things by different names. They don't call it air, they call it lung stuff, and they mention crawlies and baubles and coins because they've been using them all this time, and of course you have no idea what these things are, and it takes a while for you to twig what these things are later on, but really good stuff. So there we go, there's my rather lengthy ramblings of the last couple of months. Hoping to do a year wrap up at the end of the year. How's your reading going? What are you reading this month? Have you read anything I've just waved at you? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Comments down below, please. Though if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you, and until next time, see you later.